There are many genres within the music world, with huge amounts of crossover. Some people identify as one specific type of music artist, or some create their very own style. Today, we're going to deep dive into the types, the genres of music, educating myself and hopefully you as we dive into what makes that specific genre that music. Hello, I'm Alan Spicer and this is another tutorial from Open Mic UK on artist development. Understanding genres of music is a huge way to evolve not only your understanding of that niche, but the understanding of what music you wish to make and create. You might not like certain genres of music, but it's still important to understand why it works, why that brings in certain audiences. What makes it different might actually help you find your sound. What are music genres? When looking at music, you can assign a genre based on specific attributes. For example, it could be based on specific instruments. If a piece was being played in a certain style using orchestral instruments, it's more than likely classical. Similarly, if the instruments are playing highly distorted music on guitars, it might be metal. Some music genres are based on timing. Blues, for example, uses a specific series of patterns. Likewise, drum and bass is played very fast with a high BPM and is primarily electronic. So let's step into them. 1. Blues. Blues was developed in the 19th century and was originally played by a single performer singing with a guitar or banjo. By the 1960s, the blues had evolved significantly along with the instruments used, now electric guitars, bass and drums, and made its way across the Atlantic to the UK and beyond. A common feature of blues is the 12-bar chord structure. This starts with 4 bars on the root note of the scale, followed by 2 on the 4th. This is then followed by 2 on the root, 1 bar on the 5th, 1 bar on the 4th, and another 2 on the root. 2. Classical. Encompassing a huge range of subgenre, classical music refers broadly to most orchestral styles between 1750 and 1820. It became a reaction to the rules and restrictions prevalent in Baroque music, which predates it. To many people, anything pre-jazz sounds classical and may be referred to as such. Once you get inside this genre, however, you'll find a whole new world of stunning range, styles and categories. 3. Country music. Also known as country and western, country music has its roots in the south of the USA. Having evolved from a combination of different folk styles, combining the influence of working class immigrants, it takes its cues from Irish and Celtic folk, traditional English ballads and cowboy songs. In the modern era, there's numerous subgenres like country pop, country rock and neo-country. 4. Dance. Dance music is a far more modern genre and could also be broadly categorised as electronic music, with roots in disco music combined with the evolution of pop music and electronic dance, which took off in the late 80s and early 90s. It now splits into an incredibly large number of subgenres, some of which have become popular enough to be considered full genres in their own right. Here are some fringe music genres. Drill music. Haven't heard of drill music? Don't worry, you're not alone yet. This is a growing underground genre. It's making its way to the media consciousness for a whole lot of controversy. Drill music is an aggressive music form and takes its cues from grime, rap and dance. Characterised by its own beats, the lyrics feature what is often extreme violence and talk of criminal acts. As a result, there's been police interventions and YouTube bans. Some acts have been known to get their videos authorised before being allowed to post. Whilst it originated in the USA, it's taken on a new British format in South London where it's growing. Dubstep. Yet another love child of dance genre, dubstep is an evolution of garage and drum and bass. It came to prominence in the early 2000s, borrowing heavy bass lines and distorted tones used in the drum and bass system. Dubstep combined with garage timing and urban influences to create an extremely energetic and popular genre of music. Electro dance music, or EDM. We mentioned dance has a lot of subgenres, but this is its biggest. It's its fastest growing bass across the world, including DJs like David Guetta, Calvin Harris, Tiesto leading the way. It's closely linked to house music and came about as disco declined. Originally a cult and underground music, EDM is now mainstream, and while part of the dance music umbrella, is very much its own identity. EDM festivals, big name DJ gigs and Vegas events ensure it continues to be successful. Emo. With roots in rock, pop, heavy metal, punk, emo music has a specific goal in that it's designed to have a particular emotional resonance, characterised by expressive melodic musicianship and often confessional lyrics. It is often associated with particular fashion style and is influenced by metal and punk. Funk. Funk used a syncopated beat and heavy bass lines in a distinctive groove. It originates from African American influences and takes cues from soul, jazz and R&B. Since rising to prominence in its 1960s, it's gone on to influence almost every genre of music as well as modern rock. Folk music. Folk is a very traditional genre. Traditional folk music is orally passed down over time and often has no author. However, modern artists can still be labelled as folk artists in their original songs. Storytelling is key for folk music, and whilst musician styles vary across the world, it's a consistent element. Garage. Another modern genre that's come directly out of the evolution of electronic dance, drum and bass, soul and R&B, heavy bass lines, irregular kick drum patterns and syncopath hi-hats are standard characteristics of this popular style. Grunge. Grunge music is based on rock and punk and was popularised in the 1990s by Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Played in traditional rock band sets with guitars, bass, distorted guitars, and the main feature was the agonised, anguished vocal styles that perhaps were more negative outlook on life. Grime music. This is a British take on hip-hop, fusing dubstep, garage, dancehall, drum and bass influences with rap and R&B. Gaining notoriety through the pirate radio stations of London, it's become continuously evolved and incorporated more into sounds and rhythms, gaining massive popularity in the process. 16. Hip-hop. Now extremely broad musical category, hip-hop evolved out of the cultural explosions in the United States, featuring vinyl records mixed on turntables and incorporating rap genre along with heavy bass lines and samples. Hip-hop has now become extremely significant in terms of musical cultural influence in the modern times. House music. Linked to EDM and trance, house began in the USA's nightclubs, the warehouse, in the 1970s. It's defined by a gradual build-up to a crescendo followed by a euphoric drop in its beat. To some extent, EDM has taken over from house, which had its peak in its 1990s and 2000s, but it's still going strong, especially in places like Ibiza. It uses addictively repetitious 4-on-the-floor beats and a tempo of 120 to 130 beats per minute. A well-known subgenre of house music is acid house. Indie music. Another offshoot of rock and punk. Indie music is the so-called independent artists and bands who are not part of the mainstream industry. The style of indie music has typically remained a primarily rock band setup, however evolved from a blend of punk, rock and including modern electronic and dance music. 19. Jazz. Historically, in New Orleans in the 1900s, jazz typifies music flexibility not seen in many genres. Featuring a mix of rhythms, tempos and well-focused soloing, jazz is a huge range of potential of instruments, structures and setups. It's very common for there to be a drummer, a bass instrument, as well as any number of lead instruments ranging from woodwind to strings. Popular music genres. K-pop. Remember Gangnam Style? This new genre of music was initially categorised as a brand rather than a type of music. It was an explosion not only natively within South Korea but in the Western world, both from a variety of forms including pop, electronic music, rap, R&B and even classical. Lady Gaga recently collaborated with fledgling K-pop star Rose, cementing its place in the US mainstream. 21. Latin. Latin refers to Latin America and the influence of the whole of South America on various styles. This genre of music has Spanish and African roots and was popularised in the United States in the 20th century. Latin music is very percussive and driven by energy, passion and polyrhythms and movement. 22. Metal. Metal or heavy metal is a subgenre of rock and became a genre in its own right and spawned countless of other subgenres. Featuring a band setup with electronic guitars, bass and drums, the distorted guitar sound that gives the heavy, non-commercialised and aggressive sound. Fast tempos and shrieking vocals have become synonymous with this style. 23. Motown. This particular genre is extremely interesting because of its relation to Motown Records, a subsidiary of Universal that began what would become a fully fledged music genre. 24. Mod. Mod or modernist music came to prominence and popularity in the working class communities of the UK in the 1960s. Modern jazz, northern soul were strong influences in mod music. It can be characterised as a lifestyle or subculture and popularised by the film Quadrophenia. 25. Opera. A key part of classical music tradition in the West, opera features vocal performances that make up a specific type of music theatre. Opera is essentially a story told to music. The lines between opera and classical music are extremely blurred and often the two genres overlap. 26. Pop. Pop music, or popular music is an ever-evolving genre that encompasses any music that is designed for the masses. Anything played on mainstream radio can be categorised as pop, and over the years has enveloped most of every genre from Motown to metal, hip-hop and drum and bass. 27. Punk. Punk is a British music genre with roots in subcultural development. The punk music scene was characterised by heavy, fast guitars, simplistic songs, bass recording techniques. Punk became incredibly iconic because of the time radical image and lyrical themes. These themes and aesthetics went on to influence entire genres of music in the future. 28. Rap. Rap describes a style of music and vocal delivery. However, it can be rightly regarded as a musical genre that's massive in its popularity. Developing alongside hip-hop in the United States, rap evolved from MCs toasting and DJing in Jamaican dancehall music, and has been appreciated in the same regard as poetry. 29. Reggae. Originating in Jamaica in the 1960s and taking the world by storm through the music of Bob Marley, reggae is a fusion of traditional Jamaican folk music, jazz and R&B. Offbeat rhythms, staccato chords are often common musical themes, and reggae is closely linked to Rastafarianism and Afrocentric religions. 30. R&B, rhythm and blues. Another extremely interesting genre that's undergone several different shifts in focus. Originating in African American communities in the 1940s, it was popularised in the 1950s, and the term was applied to blues records. In the 1970s, the term was used to describe soul and funk. However, in the latest incarnation, it's blended into hip-hop and a whole range of other styles. From the 1980s to the present day, it's been described as popular soulful artists from Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston to SZA and Georgia Smith. 31. Rock. Arising from the evolution of electric guitars and distorted amplification, rock music is now home to hundreds of subgenres popularised in the UK and the US by bands playing a 4/4 rhythm and singing verses, chorus songs. It's become part of music history. Rock and roll music characterised by guitars and heavy snare drums, kick drum and rhythm. 32. Soul music. Another genre that came out of African American roots, soul music is an evolution of the original rhythm, blues, gospel and jazz. Featuring hand claps, call and response singing, heavy focus on lead singers, soul became so popular it eventually became a splinter in its own right, like Motown. 33. Techno. Techno music is a direct descendant of dance music, and it differentiates itself as much as a higher tempo and kick 4x4 kick drum lead beat. 34. Trance. Another offshoot of electronic dance music, trance features heavily synthesized lead lines that have to induce a trance-like state in dancers. The euphoric nature of tempo music is meant to take listeners to a new place on a journey. 35. World. This is a huge genre that encompasses a localised version of a traditional music from all over the globe. Each country has a rhythmic and melodic nuances that set them apart. The term world music can be used to describe all of them, but each country music has its own names and subgenres. So how many of those were you aware of? What kind of music would you like to create? If you want further help on how to distribute your music, create your music, maybe even write your music, there's a playlist here. Remember to subscribe for regular artist development tutorials, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Goodbye.